Well, it is a pleasure to be here today. And last evening, I had the opportunity to actually get to speak with several of you, and it was great. And, you know, the best part of being able to travel around is really to be able to meet with customers like yourselves. So congratulations to Becker Hoppy with the video that they showed. You know, I'm not a tweeter, so I'm going to do a shout out. So I got some time with Mike Engel. I don't know where he is. And he showed me some great work he's been doing. And it's just amazing because it made me reflect back that about 30 years ago, I was sitting probably where you are, working in an architectural firm and starting my career. And then about 15 years later, I joined Autodesk. And what I really want to talk to you about today, and it's not advancing. Let's see if we can get this switched up. Here we go. Is really about exploring technology and how that impacts and grows your business. And another way to really sum it up is the times are changing. You know, I had a couple of other conversations last night. We reflected about pen cartridge plotters, if you remember those. Some of you, I don't think, are old enough to remember those. Sticky backs and Xerox machines, and those Xerox service guys who hated you because it was the way you got details from one project to another. And we thought we were really high tech when we got a pager. Woo! I could get contacted when I was out on a job site, but then you had to track down a phone to be able to call somebody to find out what was going on. The reason why I share that with you is where you work and where you sit today in a very short period of time is going to seem foreign to the people working in architecture and design engineering. They're going to look at you and say, you had to sit at this terminal all day and work? That's how you worked? Really, who would do that? So times are moving fast, and I want to talk about the unexpected becoming the expected. And what I really mean is the way we design and manufacturing things are changing, but your customers' expectations are changing. Our expectations are changing. I travel everywhere with my iPad and my smartphone. I'd never go anywhere without it. And why is it? Because we want information now at our fingertips when we need it, and we may not even know what we need in 5 minutes. But when I know what I want to get it. And it's that expectation, and it impacts every aspect of our lives, whether you really want to acknowledge it or even recognize it or not. So I'm going to give you a little example that I kind of laugh at myself every time I get in my car, and I hope you can relate to this. So a few years ago, I bought a car, and I paid extra money to put a navigational system into it. And I loved it. I'm based out of Atlanta, so if you've ever traveled in Atlanta, you know that you need a navigational system, not to figure out where to go, but how to get there. That's the key because of construction. But after about a year, I quit using it. And the funny thing is, I got a phone mount, and I now mount my phone on top of my navigational screen. I still want a navigational system, but the key piece I want you to understand is the delivery method has changed. And that is what has made it more effective. Now from my smartphone, I can find out what time I will arrive, what my alternate routes are, not just where construction is, but where is the road jam? And how can I get around it? I want immediate information now at my fingertips so I can be most effective and efficient. And that's a key that I want you to take away and think about these next couple of days, is it's not always just a change in technology, but how you access the technology that makes you more efficient. So I'm going to do a little exercise here. It's early in the morning, so I'm going to help wake you up. So I'm going to ask you to stand. If you feel like you've got visibility into about 90% of the projects you're going to work on between now and the end of the year. Nobody knows what they're going to be working on? Okay, I think we have another problem here. At least when I was in architecture, my projects were long running. Okay, and I usually had a pretty good runway of understanding what I was going to work on. But since none of you have that insight, I'm going to change my message just slightly to you. By the end of the year, then, you may not know what project you're going to be working on, and you may not know what technology you need. But the important thing is you're going to want to make sure you have the best technology available to you when you need it, how you need it, and access it the way that you want. And that's really the direction that Autodesk is going. In the last 18 months, this is just a sampling of products that we have either acquired or we've brought to market. Some of those you may have been using or have just started using or may not even be familiar with. The real question you should ask yourself is what's going to be available to you in the next 18 months? What is going to be out there to help you be the most efficient and effective in the project you have to work on? I can't give you that answer, and I don't have a roadmap to share with you to tell you what's coming, but I can promise you there'll be slides full of additional technologies that will make your jobs more efficient and, more importantly, meet your customers' expectations. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's really all about. So I talked about we're making some changes, and we've made announcements that we're moving away from our perpetual licensing model, and it's really to make sure that, again, you can get access to technology in the way you need it, when you need it, and for the duration of time that you need it. Historically, we thought about buying software. What am I going to use for the next few years? Well, if you're not sure what project you're going to be working on by the end of this year, how can you be sure which are all the technologies you'll need to leverage? Here at Autodesk, we want to make sure that we can make it easily accessible to you, easy to deploy, easy to use, and easy to manage. And again, get you the right technology when you need it at the right time. Now, of course, this isn't a new concept. We do this with newspapers. We see newspapers now, everything is brought online, technology. I don't even watch TV anymore. I get all my news from my iPad. And it's because if I'm interested in something, I want to read about it now. I don't want to wait 20 minutes while they talk about the other stories until I get what I wanted to. We see this in magazine subscriptions, e-readers. We see this in our everyday lives when it comes to wanting to access entertainment. People aren't buying DVDs the way they used to for movies. They may want to see a movie Friday night, but they'll wait until Friday night to decide what it is and then go online and stream it. It's our expectations, and our design software should not be any different. I'm going to show you a couple of examples of things that are impacting all of the industries and markets. This is just a very small sampling. Autodesk probably touches more industry and markets than many of our customers realize. And it's an exciting place to work because over the past few years, and this will continue, the lines are blurring on who uses what technology. No longer is it just a manufacturing piece of software or an animation piece of software. You have all of this available to you to be very effective, and I'm going to show you some examples. One piece I'll share with you, and you may not be aware of, I look at this little cartoon character down in the bottom, is that for the last 20 years, every Academy Award winner for special effects has used Autodesk software. In fact, every nominee for the last 20 years has used Autodesk software. And you may say, who cares? I don't do movies. You should care because it's that technology that we start to pour it into our other applications to make your jobs more effective and meeting your customers' expectations. How many people have seen the movie Gravity? Okay, great. Well, then you might like this little clip I'm going to share with you. So the interesting piece with Gravity is, and it wasn't the first time we're really meshing human with digital, right? James Cameron talked about with Avatar, he waited for the technology to be there to allow him to accomplish his vision. That was Autodesk software. You look at Lord of the Rings, you look at a number of movies, and you start to see the meshing of the digital with the real world. And I'm going to show you a clip here of how some of this was done. And what's really interesting to me is in this movie in particular, is they're getting actors and actresses to look like they're floating in space. They really were never rotating or moving. They used industrial machinery to actually rotate the cameras and lights to simulate that the actors were spinning and then mesh that with the digital. Fascinating, so let's watch this. stopped a little short there, but I think hopefully you enjoyed seeing the mesh of the two, because when you think about your own markets, you start to see the mesh of the two with digital, with actual reality. And that's what it comes down to, really making a communication that really crosses barriers of language. And I'm going to kind of come back and talk about that in a few minutes. So I want to talk about the expected, right, and kind of what's become the expected today. And, you know, Mike was talking about cloud, and the cloud computing and the access of the cloud is going to transform the way that we work, and is currently doing that today. You know, right now, I think many people are familiar with doing renderings within the cloud, simulations within the cloud, and harnessing the engine and the power within the computing. So I kind of call that the expected, right? So if we're doing simulations, we now, instead of tying up machines on our desktops, can really leverage the cloud. And by the way, we have had over 1 million renderings now done in the Autodesk cloud that we offer, particularly with your subscription, so I hope you're leveraging that, right? We also have visualization that has been rendered. Now, you may look at this and say, well, I don't do shoe design. But what I want you to notice is how realistic this can be, what a communication tool this is, without even spoken word, that I can speak to somebody, and this is from Italy, can speak and understand what they're trying to do, and I get it. You can almost reach out and touch the leather in that shoe. That is how good the work has become. But it also means people's expectations of what they expect to see and do. So let me shift this to the unexpected. And that really is around generative design. And Carl Bass, our CEO, gave the best, I thought, analogy of how we're used to doing design and kind of working through with simulations. And he kind of equates it to the game Battleship. Anybody remember the game Battleship? Okay, there, a few of you at least do, right? So you set up your game and you call out to the other person, D3, and they yell miss, right? So you go back and you look at your strategy again. You yell out C4 and maybe you'll get a hit. And in some ways, that's how design has been when we've gone into a technology, we've set our design, we think we have it, we test it, might be a miss. So we go back, we redo our design, we test it again, and maybe we have a hit and we move forward. What about if we, instead of manipulating the design and then seeing if it meets our criteria or our parameters, that we set the parameters into the software and let the computer generate the end result? We're doing that in AEC today. Now, I've got 2 examples I'm going to share with you. The first one is Lightning Motorcycles, who design electric motorcycles out of California. And they're trying to break the speed record. And so they're looking to lighten up their motorcycles. And there was a swing arm they were designing. They knew the parameters and the weights that they wanted, and they let the computer figure out the best configuration. This isn't a designer manipulating this. This is the computer running through the iterations to come up with the best optimal design to how to manufacture this arm. And this crosses many thresholds. I want you to think broader in terms of what's being done and how you can apply that to what you do today. Here's another example. This is actually the organic design of a hip joint. This is another customer Autodesk has worked with, and we have found, and this has actually been FDA approved, and it's a logarithm that's been approved, not just a design, that by going with an organic design that is irregular, that the human bone can grow and attach to this more effectively than just a traditional design. Now, this starts to tie into the new way we're manufacturing things. How do you manufacture that? How do you produce it? You can do it with additive manufacturing, 3D printing. It's the mesh of the power of the computer, leveraging the cloud, and new manufacturing processes and technologies that will bring us into the next big wave beyond the Industrial Revolution. This is going to transform and is currently transforming, as I show you some of these current examples with customers, how they're working. So let me bring this a little bit closer to home, more into kind of the AEC world. And I'm going to share with you some examples. Some are a couple years old, but they were cutting edge and still are very profound in the work that they've done. And then Angie's going to come up a little bit later and show you some really exciting stuff specifically to AEC. So let's first take a look at the Panama Canal, right? One of the largest engineering projects in the world. So the canal was about 100 years old. This project included everything from new locks to new entrances and dredgings on both the Atlantic and the Pacific side. Autodesk Solutions touched every aspect of this project, from Civil 3D to Revit, to our Revit MEP products, to our visualization products. There was more concrete poured in here, over 200,000 tons, which is an equivalent to a major city of 20-story buildings. And the steel and rebar used in this project alone would equal 26 Eiffel Towers. The coordination and the team that was enabled to leverage by using BIM with this saved millions in finding cost saving and errors early before the project started. Phenomenal work that has been done, and when you think about the 100-year span between the two sets of locks being designed, it goes beyond just the use of the technology, but even of the fabrication. Right? So again, very early, here's some of the locks, and we've got a guest house that's going to be shown here, all done again within Revit. All the underground mechanicals, electricals were done with Revit MEP, and of course the visualization with Max 3D and our visualization products. Very extensive, right? This will continue and has set some new workflow processes in terms of how all the products work together and how it can be communicated across a broad project team. Another project I want to talk to you about is the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge. So this bridge was built in 1936 and was originally designed really to handle high winds, but it really didn't take into account the two major fault lines that it was built very closely by. And so in 1989, the earthquake hit. It was about a 6.9 on the Richter scale and collapsed part of the bridge. Now, one thing to keep in mind is there are over 250,000 cars that cross this bridge per day. So this is a major connection point, right? And so Parsons Brinckerhoff really looked at designing really the largest suspension plan, self-securing bridge that there was. They used, again, our products, but the interesting thing was they really leveraged merging a 3D model along with intelligent data. So it just wasn't just how is this going to look in producing still shots to be able to show somebody what the bridge was going to look like, but also leverage Navisworks. Let's see if this will click to start. Here we go. To literally show the construction of the new bridge, showing where temporary supports were going in, the entire timing and sequencing of this project, a major undertaking. But it was also not just a coordination tool, but this was something everybody could understand what was going to happen and how it was going to happen, including those 250,000 people who crossed the bridge every day. The text may be too small, or you might be able to see it there, right? But even as it goes through, it tells you at what percentages the completions of the phases were. So you've got 4D going on here with not just managing the design and the visualization, but the timing and the scheduling of it. So of course, here's the finished project that opened in 2013. One other project I'm going to share with you is the Arizona Memorial out at Pearl Harbor. And this is an interesting project because it had a very extensive project team. And in fact, we leveraged a number of technologies for the first time, and Autodesk was part of that team. So you can see here some of the innovations that came through with this, and HDR was the project manager for this. And the whole point of this project was to basically take a look at what is the condition of the ship underwater today. Right? This has got a steel ship, it's been sitting in salt water. How stable is it? What is our record? What's under there? And so what they did was put on an extensive project, and part of this was actually going in and take sonar digital readings of the ship and what its condition was. Now, when you look about this, and I'll touch on this here in a few minutes about the workflows that came out of it, but when you start to relate this even to work you may be doing, when you look at bridges and the structural footings that are underwater, it really starts to change how we can go in and understand what's the condition of those structures and footings, how are they deteriorating over a period of time, And how can we keep record of it and then be able to go in and anticipate where we're going to have a need to do some repair. Here's some sonar scanning that is going on. And then what I'm going to do is show you actually the data here that was ported over from the ship. And first we're going to take a look at it in recap. And again, you can get a very fine, detailed understanding of the condition. And I was talking with Pete Kelsey, who is one of our technical specialists who worked on this project, and he said about 30 days ago, the National Parks Group called them and said they had a minor collapse of some of the structural part of the ship and they lost it. And they were so thankful because they have a record baseline now, to know what was always there, but to now be able to monitor and understand what is going on underneath the water very effectively and efficiently. Here's the same data brought over into InfraWorks 360. And I think, again, this is a very telling tool for many of us to understand, right, of what the structure is. It's going to pop up over the water here, and then it's going to kind of show us the memorial in relationship to each other. So we can understand this, but you know, there are a lot of times there are people in a project that are engaged that may not understand how to read, you know, a 3D scan or understand what's going on or understand and be able to read blueprints. You know, the models start to help with that. And I want to kind of help add an interesting kind of personal twist to this story, because at the end of the day, as much technology we have, it comes down to people, right? In terms of, you have customers you want to, you know, be satisfied. You want them to get that wow with your design. You want them to get what you're trying to communicate. You want to win that project. And so let me share with you just kind of a personal side to this Pearl Harbor here. And this actually is a photograph of a pot, a kitchen cooking pot that they found down on the ship. And to kind of give you a little more backstory, this is the Arizona. And Pearl Harbor was bombed, right? And in about 9 minutes, this entire ship sank. And there was somebody up in this crow tower here, 9 minutes to be able to survive that. And Don Stratton did. This gentleman is now 93 years old, and he was on site when all this work was being done with the ship. You know, and Pete Kelsey was telling me the gentleman was great. You know, he sat there, and as they're showing him sonar, and they're telling him what they're doing and how stable it is, and the gentleman was like, that's interesting. Yeah, I get it. But it wasn't until they took a 3D print of the pot and handed it to him that he almost lost it, and he got it. He said, people will know this. He said, I could have eaten from this pot in the morning. He said, now I get it. And he was honest to say, all this electronic stuff, I kind of get it, but now I can touch it. And it's almost like taking the physical to the digital and back to the physical. And the reason why I talk about that is you will see, and Angie's going to talk about this also, that Autodesk is continuing to make strides. We generally or historically have kind of stayed behind the computer screen. Right? We focused on the software that allowed you to design and develop maybe drawings and models. But you're going to see us continue to push to bring that to reality on the front of the screen. And our connections with fabrication and how we do that, our collaboration and connecting the human part of these projects. So again, we're changing our delivery and we're really leveraging the cloud. The one thing I will tell you, and I haven't until this last piece with Don Stratton, haven't really talked about the personal connection side. Because how you are collaborating and how are you connecting are the next big component of how you're going to improve your efficiencies. And that really comes from accessing and leveraging the cloud, including for collaborating, right? We use our laptops, we use our iPads, we have access to those, we become very natural with those, but we also need to think about how we're connecting with people, right? It really comes down to who's contributing to the project. Many times they're geographically spread around the world or even around the country, right? How are we collaborating and how are we communicating with each other? This is, as I say, things are changing and expectations are changing, Many times we still sit around a conference room. My guess would be it's not as many times as I used to sit around a conference room 30 years ago and plan and design. And that's because the teams are scattered. And you never know who you need to connect to, how quickly, and what is the device that they have in front of them. And so again, our objective is to get technology, both from a design and to help you create and manufacture, but also how to collaborate at your fingertips when you need it, regardless of what device you're working with and how you want to work. This is just a sample of some of our collaboration tools out there. And you'll see BIM 360 listed here. Now, BIM 360 is the fastest selling product Autodesk has ever had. Outselling, outpacing even AutoCAD. Now, some may say, well, that's an interesting point, right? Okay. But here's the piece I want to emphasize to you. It's great technology, but I think it also emphasizes the need to be able to collaborate and connect efficiently across projects. That's why one of the key components, it's such a successful product. That is the need to take our projects and efficiencies to the next level. So with closing, I just want to say that we have the best technologies, the best collaboration tools for you to work with. But I also want to thank you, because you drive us to be better. And together, we drive each other to be the best. So thank you very much. Leverage the classes here. Open your mind of how you can work and do things differently, because again, expectations are changing, and they're changing quickly. So thank you very much.
Very good. Thanks. Thank you. All right, wasn't that amazing? Great stories, Kim. Really appreciate that insight into what Autodesk is doing as we move into the cloud and into the future. I think that really ties with our theme here at Midwest University, which is really subscribing to the future and how we get there.